Good morning, it's the vlog ride and we are driving into work. It's a nice sunny morning. It was rainy yesterday. It was cloudy. It would have been a perfect day to be able to record because I would not have had the sun, lighting up the bottom half of my face. But even with the rain being fairly light, it was just way too much noise when I tried to record. Even for, being in a car, it was just way too much noise. So that was not a thing. So we're going to try again this morning and see how that goes. Last video, I talked about Alita, and I used a feminist lens in looking at it. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that, about feminist critical theory. Feminism itself is pretty broad. It's the term feminism encapsulates a lot of growth and development in the movement. The different waves that you get of feminism over the years represent largely the different causes that are taken up by feminists. It also represents shifts in opinion and views on certain things. It also represents missteps that feminists have taken. Historically, feminism has a reputation of being very homogenous, and it is not an undeserved reputation. It's also not the complete picture of feminism, but modern feminists tend to work more towards inclusion and to consider other types of oppression and how they intersect with gender, which is why modern feminists tend to be classified as intersectional feminists. That's what that means. It means that instead of just looking at oppression based on gender, we are also looking at oppression based on religion and race and economic status and region and country and health and ability, and taking those into account as we're looking at gender oppression and the ways that these things can influence that and the way that they intersect, where one is stronger than the other, what kind of attention needs to be paid because of these different factors. You also have sex positive feminism that takes a different look at sexuality and sexual choice in a different way than previous waves of feminism necessarily did. So, yeah, it's a very broad term. A lot of times when I see people talk despairingly about it, it has to do more with previous waves of feminism than it does with what modern feminism actually is now. And, that's the thing. Not a thing I'm really concerned about in this video, because the main thing I wanted to talk about is feminist critical theory, which is informed by all of this, but getting into the weeds on, feminism and the perceptions of feminism is not really necessary for this discussion. But having at least a broad overview of what feminism is and what it's concerned with is important, and I hope I gave you a good picture of that. So as a critical theory, feminism looks at all of those things in terms of media and media culture and how media is produced and how it is taken in by people. That includes movies, music, television, books. It also includes things like advertisements, in speeches and things like that. If it is a type of communication, feminists will look at that, because there is a lot that you can see as far as, gender norms and gender normativity and things like that in a lot of different types of communication, not just entertainment. We look at, the tropes that are used, how the things that we look at as feminists, the things that we are concerned about, how are those things reflected, and then how does media either counter them or reinforce them. We also look at what kind of voices are present, who's producing media, whose attention are they seeming to try to grab with it, or whose attention are they grabbing with it. When we talk about male gaze, that is part of that, or male gaze, or that is part of male gaze. Male gaze is not just, this is from a male character's point of view, though that can be the case. It is more, is this something that men want to see versus a more diverse audience, or versus a female audience? And that's important when you're talking about media that's produced, because what is put up on the screen will not necessarily cause someone to do something. I've talked about this a few times, but it does reinforce norms that are present, whether those norms are good or not, and whether they need to change or not. For example, the father knows best trope that I talked about with Alita and her relationship to Ito. The father knows best trope is one you see a lot, especially in any kind of teen narrative involving a father figure. And it's chosen because there is something very endearing about it. It does give a male character a chance to be nurturing in a way that male characters are not always presented. So there is a lot with that trope that is good. There are reasons that we use it, that we like to have it, but it's not always good in how it deals with things like female agency. And the thing with that trope, and with a feminist look at it, feminists do not tell you, I do not tell you that, that trope being in your standard teenage daddy-daughter movie is not going to cause men to raise their daughters in such a way that their daughters do not have proper agency and understand how to make decisions well and grow into strong young women. The trope doesn't do that. But it does reinforce a certain idea about women and women moving from childhood into adulthood. And that is important to examine, given a lot of things with our society. So it's not a cause of anything. It is noise, and it can either reinforce certain ideas about gender norms, or it can fight against them. I personally think that the way the trope is resolved with Alita fights against that norm in a positive way. So there you go. But that's what we do. We look at tropes, we look at relationships that are presented in media, we look at the way things are communicated, the language that is used, the people that are present, and the way that those people are presented. And we examine that, and we look for, what's informing that. We look for what it's reinforcing. Why? First of all, it's to understand that media. That's one of the biggest things. Any critical theory that you use to examine media, you are using to ask the question, why is this here? Why does this exist? Why was this made? What does it mean? And each critical theory that you use is going to give you a more nuanced answer. If you only look at a piece of media with feminist theory, you are going to get a specific type of answer, and it may be a very nuanced answer. It may be a very good answer. It may be even, the answer that the author intended. But the more theories that you then examine something with, the more nuanced your interpretation of that work becomes. Even when you're looking at it with lenses that the creator of that media never even intended, that helps you discover ways in which ideas permeate into our society and are transmitted by us unconsciously. So, just as you can do that with Marxist theory or post-colonial theory, or whatever, you can do that with feminism. And, so it gives you a framework for understanding a work, and a framework for delving deeper into a work and getting a more nuanced meaning. There is also a certain amount of activism that comes with that, because feminism itself is very activist oriented, and there's nothing wrong with that. I would be hard pressed to find a critical theory that does not have some aspect of activism to it. Just the idea of wanting you to examine a work more carefully, even if you do not change any opinions based on that analysis. Just the act of going, look at this more critically, is a form of activism. So you can't really escape that. Dramatic construction, has its own activist quality to it, because, obviously, if you're looking at a work and you're going, this is what makes this good, you are also saying, in order for other works to be good, it needs to be doing the same kind of thing. Oh. But, you also do get, some mind-changing hopes with, with feminist examination as well. And I will not ever tell you, well, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to speak in absolute. In general, because I'm sure I could find an example of something that would just go, don't watch this. This is so harmful and damaging. But in general, I'm not going to tell you that you cannot enjoy media. I'm not going to tell you that you can't enjoy a piece of media just because a trope is very sexist or whatever. That's not the point. The point is to get you to examine it, because media does not really operate on a true supply and demand. I don't think anything in our society as far as what we consume really does, because things are advertised to us, and advertisement is not neutral. The whole purpose of advertising is to generate demand for a product. I don't think that a lot of the tropes that we have necessarily exist because people want those tropes in their media. I think people have just come to accept that these tropes are in their media and look for them because they're there. And trying to unravel the chicken and the egg in that would be next to impossible at this point. The art of storytelling itself goes back to prehistorical times. So, we've been telling stories since we needed to tell someone how to do something. Stories have always been a part of our communication. So trying to unravel where a story element or a trope is demand from, natural demand from the consumer, and where it is manufactured demand from the creator, is not a worthwhile discussion at this point when it comes to media. What is a worthwhile discussion, though, is how you can change that demand, how you can demand more, how you can go, I'm not interested in seeing these same tropes anymore, I want to see something else. And that's really what feminists fight for more than anything when we talk about wanting to see other things besides these same tropes, or these same gender representations, or whatever. It's not that you cannot have those things anymore. It's that we want there to be other things too. So, there you go. That's my thoughts on feminism as a critical theory. I hope that you liked this video. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. I will be more than happy to have you comment and give your own ideas and views. Just please do it respectfully. I know feminism can be a very heated topic for people. So if you do find your way here and you comment, please be polite about it. Hit me up on Twitter, of course. I'd be more than happy to discuss. And peace.